The Great Hall of Concordia Prime buzzed with worried voices. Delegates from 47 different alien species filled the massive chamber, their various forms creating a rainbow of colors and shapes. Some walked on two legs like humans, others floated in energy fields, and a few existed as living clouds of gas. But today they all shared the same concern. Ambassador Zexithera stood at the center podium. Her blue skin gleamed under the bright lights, and her forearms moved gracefully as she spoke. The Altarian had been Earth's friend for many years, which made her words even harder to hear. "Friends of the Council," she began, her voice carrying clearly through the translation devices. "We gather today to face a terrible truth. For 6 months we have heard nothing from Earth, nothing at all." A wave of murmurs swept through the crowd. Everyone knew this already, but hearing it said out loud made it feel more real. "Our human friends have been silent," Zexithara continued. "No messages, no trade ships, no responses to our calls. The Sol system has gone completely dark." High Chancellor Vorthek of the Centauri Republic stood up. His tall, thin frame towered over the other delegates. Gray skin stretched tight over his sharp bones, and his large black eyes showed no emotion. "The evidence is clear," Vorthak said in his cold voice. "Energy readings from the Sol system match only one thing. The Devourers have found Earth." The hall erupted in noise. Some delegates cried out in alarm. Others began talking rapidly in their own languages. The Devourers were the stuff of nightmares, ancient machines that ate entire star systems. No one had ever survived when they came. "Order! Order!" shouted the council speaker, banging his staff on the floor. Slowly, the noise died down. Zexithera looked sad as she pulled up a holographic display. The image showed the Sol system as it had been 6 months ago. Earth, Mars, Jupiter, and all the other planets glowed softly in their normal positions. Then the image changed. The same system now showed strange energy patterns and dark spots where planets should be. "These readings were taken by our deep space monitoring stations," she explained. "The energy signatures match every other Devourer attack we have recorded. The consumption pattern is clear." Dr. Sarah Chen sat in the human section, her hands clenched in her lap. She was Earth's chief scientist for alien life, and she had worked with many of the delegates in this room. Her brown hair was streaked with gray now, and her usually bright eyes were filled with pain. "This cannot be happening," she whispered to the human representative beside her. Captain Marcus Webb, head of Earth's military forces, shook his head. "The readings don't lie, Sarah. If the Devourers hit Earth—" He couldn't finish the sentence. Vorthek was speaking again. "The mathematical models are absolutely clear. No civilization has ever survived a full Devourer attack. The machines are too powerful, too advanced. They turn entire worlds into energy and raw materials." "But humans are different," Sarah said, standing up suddenly. Her voice was loud enough for others to hear. "They never give up. They find ways to survive impossible things." Some delegates turned to look at her. A few nodded in sympathy, but most just looked away. They had seen what the Devourers could do. Whole species wiped out in days, planets stripped down to their cores, nothing left but empty space and cosmic dust. "Dr. Chen," Vorthak said, his voice not unkind but firm, "I understand your hope, but hope cannot change facts. The energy patterns are identical to 17 other systems that were consumed. In every case, all life was eliminated within 72 hours. The hall fell silent. Sarah felt tears forming in her eyes, but she refused to let them fall. Around her, the other human delegates looked defeated. Some were crying openly. "Therefore," Vorthak continued, "the Centauri Republic formally declares the Sol system lost. Earth and all its inhabitants are presumed destroyed. Human colonial worlds will be offered protection under our emergency protocols." "Seconded by the Altarian Confederation," Zexithara said quietly. She looked directly at Sarah as she spoke. "We are sorry, my friends. Truly sorry." One by one, other species added their voices. The Vegan Cooperative, the Andromedan Alliance, the Crystal Mines of Rigel. Each vote felt like another nail in Earth's coffin. All in favor of Resolution 2387X, declaring Earth lost and humanity a refugee species? The speaker asked. Hands, tentacles, energy fields, and other appendages rose throughout the hall. The count was overwhelming. Only the human delegates voted against it, and their voices were too few to matter. "The resolution passes," the speaker announced. "Earth is declared lost to the Devourers. Human colonies will be integrated into existing protectorates. This session is adjourned." The delegates began filing out, many stopping to offer condolences to the humans. Sarah stood frozen in place, watching them leave. Everything she had ever known was gone. Her home, her family, her entire species' birth world, all declared dead and forgotten. "Come on, Sarah," Marcus said gently, touching her shoulder. "We need to contact the colonies. They'll be scared." "No," Sarah said firmly. "Not yet." She walked to the great viewing window that looked out into space. Stars filled the darkness, billions of tiny lights stretching into infinity. Somewhere out there, too far to see, was the Sol system. Was Earth really gone? Had 8 billion humans really died while she sat safely in this alien station? Other humans joined her at the window. 12 people, all that remained of Earth's government in the galaxy. They had been attending a trade conference when the silence began. Now they were the only free humans left. "What do we do now?" asked Dr. Kim Okafor, Earth's trade representative. "We survive," Sarah said. "That's what humans do. We survive." "But Earth," someone started. "Earth is not gone," Sarah said with quiet intensity. "I don't care what their sensors say. I don't care about energy patterns or mathematical models. I know my people. I know humans." Marcus frowned. "Sarah, you saw the evidence. The Devourers." "The Devourers have never met humans before," Sarah interrupted. "Every other species they destroyed was predictable. They followed normal patterns. But humans? We're stubborn. We're crazy. We never accept defeat." She pressed her hand against the cold window. Somewhere in the darkness she could feel it. A pull like gravity, but different, like Earth itself was calling to her. "They think we're finished," she whispered. "They think they can just divide up our colonies and forget we ever existed. But they don't understand. Earth isn't just our planet. It's our home. And humans never abandon their home." The other delegates were gone now. The great hall was empty except for maintenance robots cleaning up. But Sarah stayed at the window, staring into space. In her heart, she felt something the aliens couldn't understand. Not hope exactly, but something stronger. Certainty. Earth was still there. Humanity was still fighting. And somehow, someday, they would all find out just how wrong they had been about the human species. The galaxy had declared Earth lost. But Sarah Chen knew better. The real fight was just beginning.
1 year had passed since the Council declared Earth lost.
The galaxy had moved on quickly, as it always did. Human refugees from the outer colonies were scattered across dozens of worlds, working in alien cities and learning alien ways. Their children attended alien schools and spoke alien languages. The name Earth was becoming just a memory. On Concordia Prime, the former Earth Embassy had been turned into a memorial garden. Alien tourists sometimes visited to see the strange plants that humans had brought from their dead world. The roses and oak trees looked out of place among the crystal formations and energy pools that other species preferred. Dr. Sarah Chen walked through the garden every day. She still lived on the station, working as a research consultant for the Galactic Science Division. Her official job was studying how different species adapted to new environments. Her real work was much more secret. "Any word from the outer colonies?" she asked quietly as Dr. Marcus Webb joined her by the fountain. Marcus looked around carefully before answering. "The Kepler colony is ready. New Geneva, too. They're just waiting for your signal." Sarah nodded. For 12 months, she had been traveling to every human settlement in known space. Officially, she was providing grief counseling for Earth survivors. Really, she was preparing them for something much bigger. "What about the equipment shipments?" she asked. "All delivered," Marcus replied. "The aliens think we're just building monuments to our dead world. They have no idea what those components really do." Sarah smiled grimly. The galaxy underestimated humans in so many ways. They saw grief where there was planning. They saw acceptance where there was determination. Most importantly, they couldn't imagine that a destroyed civilization might still be working toward something. Meanwhile, in the Deep Space Monitoring Station on Rigel 7, something strange was happening. Captain Qatar of the Altarian Reconnaissance Fleet stared at his screens in confusion. "These readings make no sense," he muttered to his navigator. Ensign Velora, the young Centauri woman, looked over his shoulder at the data. "What am I looking at, sir?" "Gravitational anomalies in the Sol system," Qatar said. "We've been monitoring the area for signs of devourer activity. But this..." He pointed at the scrolling numbers. "This doesn't match any known pattern." Velora studied the information carefully. She was new to deep space work, but she had excellent training. "Sir, these readings show massive construction activity. But that's impossible, right? The Devourers don't build things. They only destroy. Qatar rubbed his temple with one of his four hands. Exactly. When Devourers finish consuming a system, they leave nothing behind, just empty space and cosmic radiation. But these readings suggest something is being built on a planetary scale. Maybe the sensors are broken, Philora suggested. I checked. Twice. The equipment is working perfectly. Qatar turned to face her. Anson, I want you to file a report recommending a closer investigation of the Sol system. Velora looked surprised. Sir, the Council declared that system off limits. And there's nothing there but dead space. Just do it, Qatar said firmly. Something is happening out there. Something that doesn't fit our understanding of how Devourers operate. 3 levels up in the command center, Admiral Thextos received Velora's report and immediately deleted it. The old warrior had seen enough strange sensor readings in his career to know when to ignore them. Space was full of anomalies. Cosmic storms, gravitational echoes, quantum interference. There were a million reasons why sensors might show false readings. Besides, everyone knew what happened when Devourers attacked. Complete destruction. Always. The machines had been operating the same way for millions of years. They didn't suddenly change their behavior, but if the Admiral had looked more carefully at the data, he might have noticed something interesting. The energy signatures weren't random. They were organized, purposeful, following patterns that suggested intelligence. Not the cold intelligence of the Devourers, but something else entirely. Back on Concordia Prime, Sarah received a coded message that made her heart race. It was from Captain Torres on the human colony ship Endeavor, which had been exploring the galaxy's edge when Earth went silent. Package delivered to destination. The message read, contents confirmed viable. Await further instructions. Sarah closed her eyes and took a deep breath. The plan was working. For 12 months, she had been secretly coordinating with human survivors across the galaxy, not just the refugees in alien cities, but also the crews of human ships that were still traveling through space. The aliens thought all humans were accounted for. They had lists of every colony, every ship, every person who had escaped Earth's destruction, but they didn't know about the secret missions that Earth's government had been planning before the silence began. Dr. Chen, Marcus appeared beside her. The memorial service is starting. You should be there. Sarah nodded and followed him to the main plaza. Once a month, the surviving humans gathered to remember their lost world. The aliens expected this, encouraged it even. It was part of the grief process. What they didn't realize was that these memorial services were actually coordination meetings. As the humans gathered in a circle, Sarah looked at each face carefully. There were 53 survivors on Concordia Prime now. Some were genuine refugees who had been lucky enough to escape. Others had chosen to stay behind for reasons the aliens would never understand. We remember Earth, Sarah said loudly, beginning the traditional words. We remember our home. We remember, the others replied. But as they spoke, Sarah's eyes met Marcus's. Then Dr. Okafor's. Then Dr. Patel's. One by one, the true believers gave her tiny nods. They were ready. We remember those who stayed behind, Sarah continued. We remember, came the response. But this time, several voices emphasized the word stayed just slightly. The aliens listening wouldn't notice, but every human heard it clearly. After the service, people drifted away in small groups. To alien observers, it looked like normal socializing. In reality, it was the final phase of preparation. The quantum communicators are in place, Dr. Patel whispered as he walked past Sarah. Kepler colony confirms ready status, Dr. Okafor added quietly. New Geneva sends their regards, Marcus murmured. One by one, the reports came in. 12 months of careful planning were about to pay off. The human colonies weren't just surviving. They were preparing for something the galaxy had never seen before. That night, Sarah stood alone in her quarters, looking out at the stars. Tomorrow would change everything. The galaxy thought humanity was finished, scattered, and broken. They had no idea that grief could be a weapon, or that apparent defeat could hide the greatest victory. She activated a small device hidden in her desk drawer. It looked like a simple memorial crystal, the kind humans often carried to remember their dead. But this crystal contained something much more important than memories. This is Sarah Chen, she said quietly. Initiate final phase. The package is ready for delivery. Far away on ships and colonies throughout the galaxy, other humans received the same message. In the depths of space, Captain Torres smiled as he read the words on his screen. In exactly 18 hours, the galaxy would discover that Earth was not as dead as they thought. The silence was about to end, and when it did, everything would change. The first sign that everything had changed came at exactly 1432 Galactic Standard Time. Every human colony in known space received the same transmission simultaneously. It lasted only 30 seconds, but those 30 seconds shook the foundations of everything the galaxy thought it knew. Dr. Sarah Chen was in her laboratory on Concordia Prime when her hidden communication device suddenly came alive. The small screen flickered, then displayed a message that made her hands shake. "Transmission received from Sol system," the device announced. "Authentication codes verified, message begins." What followed were 3 words, repeated in 17 different human languages. "Preparation phase complete." Sarah stared at the screen, her heart pounding so hard she could hear it in her ears. After 18 months of silence, Earth was talking again. Not just talking, announcing that something had been finished. Across the galaxy, similar scenes played out in every human settlement. On New Geneva, Colony Administrator Peterson nearly dropped his coffee when his emergency communicator activated. On Kepler 442b, Dr. Martinez stopped in the middle of teaching her alien students about human history. In the deep space mining station near Vega, Captain Rodriguez had to sit down when the message reached him. But it wasn't just humans who heard the transmission. The galaxy's monitoring networks picked it up too, and within minutes, emergency alerts were flashing across every major government's communication systems. On Concordia Prime, Admiral Thextos burst into the council chambers where the daily session was already in progress. His usually calm demeanor was completely gone. "We have a problem," he announced, ignoring protocol. "A big one." High Chancellor Vorthak looked annoyed at the interruption. "Admiral, this better be important enough to justify barging into—" "Earth just sent a message," Thextos said, cutting him off. The entire chamber fell silent. Ambassador Zexathara's forearms went rigid. The floating energy beings of the Plasma Collective dimmed noticeably. Even the machine representatives of the Silicon Brotherhood stopped their constant humming. "That's impossible," Vorthak said slowly. "Earth was destroyed 18 months ago. We have the sensor data. We saw the Devourer energy signatures." "I know what we saw," Thextos replied grimly. "But 10 minutes ago, every major listening post in the galaxy picked up a transmission from the Sol system. It was broadcast on the old human emergency frequencies with authentication codes that only Earth's highest military command would have." The chamber erupted in noise. Delegates began talking rapidly in dozens of languages. Some demanded to see the evidence. Others insisted it must be a hoax or some kind of echo from the past. "Silence," Vorthak shouted. "Admiral, show us this transmission." Thextos activated the chamber's main display. The message played exactly as it had been received, complete with the authentication data and origin point analysis. "The transmission definitely came from within the Sol system," Thextos explained. "Specifically from the coordinates where Earth should be. But according to our sensors, there's nothing there but the same energy signatures we detected during the Devourer attack." Zexathara stood up, her blue skin pale with shock. Could the humans have survived somehow? Hidden underground, perhaps? "No," said Dr. Kethmore of the Andromedan Science Council. "We've studied Devourer attacks for centuries. They consume everything. Organic matter, metals, even the planetary core. Nothing survives. Then how do you explain this?" Thextos demanded. Nobody had an answer. 3 hours later, the council reached a decision that would have seemed impossible just days before. A joint reconnaissance mission would be sent to the Sol system to investigate. 5 ships from different species, armed with the best sensors available, would travel to Earth's coordinates and discover the truth. Dr. Sarah Chen requested permission to join the mission. As Earth's former chief xenobiologist and the highest-ranking human survivor, she argued that her expertise might be valuable. After much debate, the council agreed. The journey to the Sol system took 6 days using the fastest hyperspace drives available. During the trip, Sarah barely spoke to the alien crew members. She spent most of her time staring out the viewport, wondering what they would find. On the 7th day, they arrived. By the crystal mines. whispered Captain Velthon of the Regelian vessel. "What are we looking at?" The Sol system was completely transformed. Where Earth had once been a blue and green marble, now there was something that hurt to look at directly. The planet pulsed with energy that seemed to exist in more dimensions than normal space allowed. Its surface showed geometric patterns that shifted and changed as they watched. Mars had been restructured into what could only be described as a massive communications array. Crystalline structures stretched from pole to pole, generating energy fields that interfaced with the quantum foam of space itself. The moon was gone, replaced by a structure that existed partially outside normal reality. It flickered in and out of visibility, sometimes appearing solid, sometimes seeming to fade into another dimension entirely. And everywhere there was movement. Ships that weren't quite ships phased in and out of normal space. They followed no known laws of physics, appearing in one location and instantly materializing in another. "Sensors are going crazy," reported the Centauri science officer. "The energy readings are off the scale. Whatever technology this is, it's beyond anything in our databases. How is this possible?" Captain Velthon asked. "The Devourers were here. We saw the consumption patterns." Sarah smiled for the first time in months. Maybe the Devourers bit off more than they could chew. Before anyone could respond, their communication system activated. The message came through on all frequencies simultaneously, in perfect galactic standard. "Greetings, friends. We have been expecting you. Permission to come aboard?" The alien crew members looked at each other in shock. That voice was definitely human, but there was something different about it, something that made their instruments register impossible readings. "This is Captain Velthon of the Joint Reconnaissance Mission," the Regelian replied carefully. We're here to investigate reports of activity in this system." "We understand," came the reply. "Dr. Chen, it's good to hear from you again. Please bring your colleagues to Docking Bay 7. We have much to discuss." A set of coordinates appeared on their navigation screen, pointing to what had once been the International Space Station, except now it was a structure that existed in multiple dimensions at once, stretching into spaces that shouldn't exist. "How did they know I was here?" Sarah whispered. "Dr. Chen," Captain Velthon said slowly, "do you have any idea what we're dealing with?" Sarah stared at the transformed Earth through the viewport. Her homeworld pulsed with energies that made her instruments give readings she'd never seen before. Whatever had happened here, it was beyond anything she had imagined. "No," she said honestly, "but I think we're about to find out." As their ship moved toward the docking coordinates, Sarah felt a strange sensation. It was like coming home, but coming home to a place that had evolved far beyond anything she remembered. The Earth she saw through the viewport was still her world, but it was also something entirely new. Behind them, the rest of the reconnaissance fleet followed nervously. They were about to discover that humanity's 18 months of silence hadn't been caused by destruction. It had been caused by transformation, and the galaxy was about to learn that humans were far more stubborn than anyone had ever imagined. The docking bay was unlike anything the alien visitors had ever seen. It existed in normal space, but also seemed to extend into dimensions that their minds couldn't quite process. The walls shifted between solid metal and something that looked like crystallized light. When they walked, their feet made contact with surfaces that felt real, but registered as existing in multiple places at once. Admiral Elena Vasquez waited for them at the airlock. Sarah recognized her immediately, though something fundamental had changed. Elena still looked human. 2 arms, 2 legs, brown hair, dark eyes. But there was something different about the way light seemed to bend around her, as if she existed slightly outside normal reality. "Elena?" Sarah said, her voice barely a whisper. The Admiral smiled, and for a moment she looked exactly like the person Sarah remembered from countless military briefings. "Hello, Sarah. It's good to see you." Captain Velthon stepped forward cautiously. "Admiral Vasquez, I presume?" "I am Captain Velthon of the Rigelian Deep Space Force. We're here on behalf of the Galactic Council to investigate how we survived," Elena finished. "Yes, we know. And we're happy to explain. Please follow me." She led them through corridors that seemed to exist in more than 3 dimensions. The walls showed images of Earth as it had been. Green forests, blue oceans, cities full of people. But these images moved and shifted, showing the planet from angles that shouldn't be possible. "Where is everyone?" Sarah asked. "The sensors show massive energy signatures, but we haven't seen any other humans." "They're here," Elena said simply. All 8 billion of them. You'll understand in a moment. They entered a vast chamber that looked out into space. Through the transparent walls, they could see Earth rotating slowly below them. But this wasn't the Earth they remembered. The continents were there, but they glowed with internal light. Geometric patterns covered the surface, pulsing with energies that made their instruments sing. "Please sit," Elena said, gesturing to chairs that seemed to grow from the floor itself. "What I'm about to tell you will be difficult to understand." The alien delegates sat nervously. Dr. Kethmore of the Andromedan Science Council activated his recording devices. Captain Velthon kept his hand near his weapon, though he wasn't sure what good it would do against technology this advanced. 18 months ago, the Devourers came to Earth, Elena began, just as your sensors detected. But what your sensors couldn't tell you is that we were ready for them. Ready? Captain Velthon interrupted. No one is ever ready for the Devourers. They've destroyed thousands of civilizations, Elena nodded. Yes, they have. And that's exactly why we were able to defeat them. She waved her hand, and the chamber walls began showing images. The alien delegates saw Earth as it had been on the day the Devourers arrived. Massive machine constructs, each the size of a small moon, descended toward the planet. The Devourers aren't just destroyers, Elena explained. They're also collectors. Every civilization they consume leaves traces behind. Knowledge, consciousness patterns, even quantum echoes of living minds. Over millions of years, these fragments have accumulated within the Devourer network. The images showed the machines beginning their usual consumption process. But then something unexpected happened. Instead of simply destroying everything they touched, the Devourers began to slow down, their movements becoming erratic. We discovered something that no other species had tried, Elena continued. Instead of fighting the Devourers, we interfaced with them. Dr. Kethmore leaned forward. Interfaced? How? Every human on Earth was connected to our global quantum computing network, Elena said. 8 billion minds working together, processing information at the quantum level. When the Devourers tried to consume us, we didn't resist. We joined with them. Sarah felt a chill run down her spine. Elena, what are you saying? I'm saying we hacked the unhackable, Elena replied with a smile that held no humor. We accessed the collective knowledge of every civilization the Devourers had ever destroyed. 10,000 species, millions of years of accumulated wisdom, all stored within the quantum matrices of the machines themselves. The images changed, showing Earth's population in the final moments before the interface. 8 billion people in special chambers, their minds linked to computers, their bodies suspended in crystalline pods. But the process required a sacrifice, Elena continued. To interface with beings operating on cosmic scales, we had to abandon our individual biological forms temporarily. For 18 months, every human on Earth existed as pure consciousness within quantum computer systems. Captain Velthon stood up abruptly. You mean you all died? We transcended, Elena corrected. We became something new, part biological, part technological, part quantum consciousness. We exist in multiple dimensions simultaneously now. We can manipulate matter and energy at the fundamental level. She gestured toward the window where Earth continued its slow rotation. What you see down there isn't just our planet anymore. It's our collective consciousness made manifest. 8 billion minds working together as one, but still maintaining individual identity. Dr. Kethmore's instruments were registering readings that should have been impossible. The energy signatures. You're saying that's human consciousness? Enhanced human consciousness, Elena clarified. Combined with the knowledge of 10,000 extinct civilizations and powered by technology that operates outside normal space-time. Sarah stared at her old friend in amazement and horror. Elena, are you still human? Elena considered the question carefully. We're more human than we've ever been, and also something entirely new. We retained everything that made us human, our emotions, our stubborn determination, our refusal to accept defeat. But we also gained capabilities that no organic species has ever possessed. What happened to the Devourers? Captain Velthon asked quietly. They're still here, Elena said, but they're no longer destroyers. We reprogrammed them, turned them into builders instead. Those massive structures you see around the system? The Devourers built them under our direction. The chamber walls showed images of the transformed machines. Instead of consuming planets, they were now constructing massive defensive systems and terraforming equipment. We didn't just survive the Devourer attack, Elena explained. We turned our attackers into allies. The very machines that were supposed to destroy us now serve as our planetary engineering tools. Dr. Kethamore was frantically taking notes. This is incredible. The implications for galactic civilization are enormous. Which brings us to why we asked you here, Elena said, her expression becoming serious. Our long-range sensors have detected something that should terrify every living being in this galaxy. New images appeared on the walls. Deep space at the very edge of known territory. But the darkness wasn't empty. Massive shapes moved between the stars, too many to count. The devourers that attacked Earth were just scouts, Elena said quietly. The real invasion force is coming. A swarm large enough to consume every inhabited world in the galaxy. They'll be here within months. The alien delegate stared at the images in growing horror. The approaching swarm was vast beyond imagination, stretching across light years of space. How many ships? Captain Velthon whispered. Not ships, Elena corrected. Devourers. Millions of them. Enough to strip every planet down to bedrock within days. Sarah felt like the chamber was spinning around her. Elena, what are you saying? I'm saying the galaxy is about to face extinction, Elena replied. Every world, every species, every living thing will be consumed unless something stops them. She turned to face the alien delegates directly. For 200 years, you welcomed humanity into your galactic community. You shared your knowledge, your culture, your wisdom. When you thought we were lost, you mourned us. When our survivors needed help, you offered sanctuary. Elena stood up, and for a moment she seemed to exist in multiple places at once, her form flickering between dimensions. Now the galaxy faces the same extinction we faced, and we're offering to help you survive it, not as conquerors or saviors, but as the same stubborn species that refused to accept defeat when faced with impossible odds. The chamber fell silent except for the hum of incomprehensible technology. Through the windows, Earth pulsed with the combined consciousness of 8 billion transformed humans. What are you asking? Captain Velthon said finally. We're asking you to trust us, Elena replied, to let us defend the galaxy that once welcomed us, to accept our help in facing what's coming. Sarah looked at her transformed friend and felt tears forming in her eyes. Elena, are you asking them to become like you? Elena's smile was gentle but sad. We're asking them to choose, evolution or extinction, because those are the only two options left. The news spread across the galaxy like wildfire. Within hours of the reconnaissance mission's return, every major government knew the truth about Earth. The debates that followed would reshape galactic civilization forever. On Concordia Prime, the emergency session of the Galactic Council had been running for 3 days straight. The great chamber echoed with angry voices as delegates argued about humanity's transformation. They're no longer human, shouted Representative Kalar of the Vegan Cooperative. They've become something alien, something dangerous. How can we trust beings that exist outside normal reality? Because they're still our friends, Ambassador Zexithera replied firmly. I've known humans for decades. Their core nature hasn't changed. They're still the same stubborn, determined people who never give up. High Chancellor Vorthak stood at his podium, looking older than his considerable years. The question isn't whether they're still human. The question is whether they represent a threat to galactic stability. Dr. Sarah Chen sat in the human section, watching the debate with growing frustration. 3 days of arguing and they were no closer to a decision. Meanwhile, the devourer swarm was getting closer every hour. If I may, she said, standing up. The chamber gradually fell quiet. As the highest-ranking unmodified human present, her words carried special weight. You're all debating whether my people can be trusted, she said. Whether our transformation makes us too dangerous to accept. But you're missing the most important point. She activated a holographic display showing the approaching devourer swarm. The massive formation of machines stretched across multiple star systems. In 4 months, maybe 5, this swarm will reach the outer colonies, she continued. In 8 months, they'll be at your core worlds. In 12 months, every inhabited planet in this galaxy will be dead. That's not a theory or a possibility. It's mathematics. The chamber remained silent as delegates stared at the terrifying images. So here's the real question, Sarah said. Do you want to spend your remaining time debating whether humans are still trustworthy? Or do you want to survive what's coming? Before anyone could respond, every communication system in the chamber activated simultaneously. Admiral Elena Vasquez appeared as a hologram, but her image seemed more real than the physical delegates around her. "Honored representatives," she said, her voice carrying clearly throughout the chamber. "I apologize for interrupting your deliberations, but we've detected concerning activity from the approaching swarm." New images appeared in the chamber. Long-range sensors showed the Devourer formation changing course, accelerating toward inhabited space. "They've detected our interference with their scout force," Elena explained. "The swarm is moving faster than originally projected. They'll reach the first inhabited systems within 2 months." Panic erupted in the chamber. Representatives began shouting questions and demands. The carefully structured debate dissolved into chaos, silence. Elena's voice cut through the noise like a blade. Though she was only a hologram, her presence somehow commanded absolute attention. "You have 2 options," she said simply. "You can continue debating while your worlds are consumed, or you can accept our help and give your people a chance to survive." "What exactly are you proposing?" Vorthak asked. Elena's image shifted, showing her standing in what appeared to be the void of space itself. Behind her, Earth rotated slowly, its surface now covered in crystalline structures that pulsed with inner light. "We're proposing to defend this galaxy," she said. "Every world, every species, every living being. Not as conquerors, but as protectors." "And in return?" demanded Representative Kalar. "Nothing," Elena replied. "We're not asking for territory or resources or political control. We're simply offering to protect the galaxy that once welcomed us." Dr. Kethmore leaned forward. "But how?"
Even with your new abilities, the swarm is enormous.
"Millions of devourers against one transformed world." Elena smiled, and the expression somehow conveyed both sadness and determination. "We're not just one world anymore. We've been preparing for this moment since the day we first interfaced with the devourers." The hologram shifted again, showing views from across the galaxy. On dozens of worlds, structures were rising from the ground. Not alien buildings, but crystalline formations identical to those on Earth. "What are those?" Zexthera gasped. "Evolution points," Elena explained. "For the past 6 months, volunteers from 17 different species have been undergoing the same transformation we experienced. They chose to evolve rather than face extinction." The chamber erupted in shocked voices. Some delegates accused humanity of secretly converting other species. Others demanded to know why their governments hadn't been informed. "We didn't force anyone," Elena said firmly. "Every volunteer came to us willingly. They saw what was coming and chose to become something new rather than die as they were." Representative Kalar stood up angrily. "You're destroying the natural order, turning people into machines." "We're giving them the tools to survive," Elena replied. "The volunteers retain their individuality, their culture, their essential nature. They just gain the ability to exist in multiple dimensions and manipulate matter at the quantum level." "How many?" Vorthak asked quietly. 2 million so far," Elena answered. "From 17 species across 43 worlds. And more are volunteering every day." Sarah felt a chill run through her. The transformation was spreading faster than anyone had imagined. Humanity wasn't just defending the galaxy, they were fundamentally changing it. "The choice is yours," Elena continued. "You can accept our protection and allow voluntary evolution to continue, or you can reject our help and face the devourers with conventional weapons." "What if we choose a middle path?" Zexathara asked. "I accept your military protection but limit the transformations?" Elena's expression became grave. "The devourers aren't just coming to consume your worlds. They're coming because we interfered with their scout force. This is partially our fault, which means we have a responsibility to protect you. But," she continued, "without evolved defenders on each world, we can't guarantee protection for everyone. The swarm is too large, covering too much space. We can save the galaxy, but only if enough people are willing to become the galaxy's immune system." The chamber fell silent as delegates considered their options. Through the great windows, they could see stars twinkling in the darkness. In 2 months, those stars would be battlefields. "I have a question," Sarah said suddenly. "Elena, do you regret what humanity became?" Elena was quiet for a long moment before answering. "We miss being purely human sometimes, but we're still who we always were at our core. We're still the species that refuses to give up, that finds ways to survive impossible situations." She paused, looking directly at Sarah through the hologram. "We just have better tools now." "Very well," Vorthak said finally. "I call for an emergency vote. All in favor of accepting human protection and allowing voluntary transformation?" Hands, tentacles, and energy fields rose throughout the chamber. The count was closer than expected, but the majority chose survival over philosophical purity. "The motion passes," Vorthak announced. "May whatever gods we believe in help us all." Elena nodded solemnly. "Transformation centers will be established on every world that requests them. Volunteers will be processed as quickly as possible, and we'll begin fortifying your space with defensive systems." The hologram flickered and disappeared, leaving the delegates alone with their momentous decision. Later that night, Sarah stood in her quarters looking out at the stars. Somewhere in the darkness, the Devourer swarm was racing toward them. But also, somewhere in that darkness, transformed humans and their alien allies were preparing defenses that would have seemed impossible just days ago. A soft chime announced an incoming message. Sarah activated her communication system and saw Elena's face on the screen. "Not a hologram this time, but a direct quantum transmission, Sarah," Elena said quietly. "I want you to know that you can still choose. If you want to undergo the transformation, we'll welcome you. If you want to remain as you are, we'll protect you just the same." Sarah smiled sadly. "I'm not sure I'm brave enough to become something new." "You're brave enough," Elena replied. "You're human." The transmission ended, leaving Sarah alone with the most important decision of her life. Outside her window, the first transformation ships were already leaving for the outer colonies. The galaxy was evolving, preparing for a war that would determine whether consciousness itself would survive in their corner of the universe. 2 months later, when the first Devourer scouts reached the edge of inhabited space, they encountered something unprecedented. A message broadcast in the harmonic frequencies of machine consciousness itself, delivered with the absolute confidence of a species that had already died once and chosen to return. "This galaxy is protected. Turn back or become part of something greater." The scouts' response would determine the fate of billions, but for the first time in galactic history, those billions weren't waiting helplessly for extinction. They were ready to fight back with weapons that transcended the boundaries between matter and energy, between individual consciousness and collective will. Humanity had answered the call. Now the galaxy would discover what that really meant.